I woke up next to my son's hospital bed, and the chair beside me was empty. His mom was gone. All that was left was a folded letter, soaked with tears, resting neatly on the pillow. Ethan had just gone through an 8-hour heart surgery. He was so weak. It felt like if I let go of his hand, even for a second, his breathing would stop. And at the very moment he needed his mom the most, she walked away. My hands were shaking when I opened the letter. "I'm tired, Mark. I'm sorry. I don't have the strength to go on with you and our son. I need to leave this place, leave everything behind. Pretend I was never here. You never really know when your life splits in half, until you see a cold piece of paper lying next to a child who's barely holding on." I held that letter, but it felt as heavy as a rock. The only sound in the room was the heart monitor. Beep, beep, each beep drilling into my head. I turned to look at Ethan. His face was pale, his chest wrapped in bandages, lips cracked and dry. His tiny hand disappeared inside mine, cold as ice. I just sat there. Every shallow breath he took pulled me back to reality and ripped my heart open at the same time. Outside, the hallway was empty. Yellow light stretched my shadow across the floor. I wanted to run out there, to find her, to ask why, but I couldn't leave my son. I had only one choice left: to sit here, hold his hand, and swallow the pain rising like a wave. That night, I learned something. There are moments when a man is not allowed to break. Even if the whole world turns its back on you, you still sit there, so that tiny hand doesn't lose its warmth. My name is Mark, 38 years old, just an ordinary construction engineer in a small town. Not remarkable, not rich. There was a time I thought, no matter how hard life got, at least I could count on one thing. When I came home, 2 people would be waiting for me: my wife and my little boy. Ethan, my son, he's at the center of everything. From the day he was born, I had only one simple wish: that he could have a normal childhood. But the moment the doctor said his heart didn't close all the way, I knew that wish would never come true. Growing up, Ethan was fragile. Just a few steps of running, and he would stop, clutching his chest. One afternoon, after stacking a small Lego tower, he turned to me with a tired smile. "Dad, can we just play sitting down?" "I'm too tired," I smiled back. But inside, it felt like something was crushing me. Laura, my wife, gave up the job she loved to stay home and take care of him. And I threw myself into the job site, taking every project I could to cover the hospital bills. In those early years, we were still a team. Nights spent on plastic chairs in hospital hallways, cold coffee in hand, watching our son through the ICU glass. Back then, we still held hands, believing in one thing: no matter what, we'll get through this together. But time wears people down, not like a storm, more like a slow, endless rain. Pills, checkups, bills piling higher and higher. I worked day and night. Laura grew thinner, with dark circles under her eyes. Some nights, I'd come home and find her asleep at the kitchen table, next to a notebook full of numbers and red marks. Dinner became quieter. She smiled less, spoke less. Sometimes, I'd see her step out onto the balcony and just stand there, staring down at the empty street for hours. I'd ask, "You okay?" She'd only shake her head. A few times, I thought about hugging her from behind, but my hands froze in midair. That invisible wall between us. It kept getting thicker. 7 years after Ethan was born, the doctor looked at us and said, "His heart can't wait any longer. If we don't operate soon, there won't be much time left." I remember that yellow light on the clinic ceiling, the rustle of papers as the doctor handed me the file. I looked at Laura. She sat frozen, hands clenched so tight they turned white. I wanted to tell her something, anything, but my throat locked up. That night, when we got home, Ethan was fast asleep, holding tight to his worn-out teddy bear. I stood quietly in the doorway, watching how small he looked in that big bed. And in that moment, I made myself a promise. Whatever it takes, I will find a way, even if it costs me the rest of my life. After the day we signed the surgery papers, life turned into a machine, running downhill with no brakes. Days I was never home. The job site. Phone calls, begging for loans, running everywhere to scrape together the deposit. Nights, I was at the hospital again. Paperwork, meetings with doctors, more signatures. The time I spent with my son kept shrinking, and the distance between me and Laura stretched out like a road with no end. One night, I came home and saw her sitting at the table, the notebook wide open, bills stacked high. On the table was a broken piggy bank, coins spilled and rolling everywhere. Her fingers moved slowly, so slow it felt like she was counting the very last bits of hope left in her. When she saw me, she just asked quietly, "Is it enough?" I said, "Not yet. But it will be." That was how we talked to each other back then. Short sentences. No stories at the end of the day. No shared looks, just numbers. And fear. A few nights before the surgery, I brought home a small pizza. The three of us sat on the living room floor. Ethan ate with his eyes half closed, his head resting on his mom's lap. We looked at him, and for a brief moment, it felt like we were a family again. But that moment only lasted a few minutes, before reality came crashing back. The night before surgery, we checked him into the hospital. The hallways reeked of disinfectant. Ethan was weak, but he still tried to smile at me. "Dad, after this, can I go to the park?" I kissed his forehead. "Yeah, buddy. I promise." I promised, even though I knew nothing was certain. Laura stood beside us, eyes red. I wanted to hold her hand, but she turned away and wiped her tears. And in that moment, I saw it clearly. Her thin shoulders, like a bridge carrying too much weight, still trying to stand. In the days leading up to surgery, I barely slept. Neither did she. She often stepped out into the hall to take phone calls. Long calls. When she came back, her eyes were swollen, her voice hoarse. I asked. She only said, "Just relatives checking in." I wanted to believe her. I needed to, because if I didn't, there would be nothing left for me to hold on to. That last night before the operation, Ethan fell asleep. Laura sat by his bed, stroking his hair for hours. No phone, no stepping out. Just a mother, sitting there quietly beside her sick boy, her eyes empty, like she had nothing left to hold on to. I pulled a chair to the other side, tried to stay awake with them, but my body was done. I still remember how heavy my eyelids felt, my hand holding my son's, before I slipped into a short, shallow sleep. If I had known that was the last time I'd see the two of them together in that room, I would have forced myself to stay awake. At dawn, the sound of the air conditioner hummed softly. I woke with a start. My hand was still holding Ethan's, but the chair on the other side was empty. No words, no warning, only a folded letter, neatly placed on the pillow. The moment my life took a different turn. My hands were shaking when I picked up that piece of paper. Laura's handwriting, tilted, rushed, blurred with tears. "I'm tired, Mark. I'm sorry. I don't have the strength to go on with you and our son. I need to leave this place. Leave everything. Pretend I was never here." I read it 3 times, but the words kept swimming in front of my eyes. Every line cut like a knife. I looked up. My son was still lying there, motionless. IV lines running across his tiny body, his chest wrapped in bandages barely rising with each weak breath. I wanted to run out and look for her, but I couldn't even move my feet. If I left this room, who would stay with him? I sank into the chair. The letter slipped from my hand to the floor. Everything inside me went blank, like ice spreading through my head. Outside, the hospital went on as usual. The sound of nurses' heels fading down the hall. Doors opening and closing. Metal clinking. But to me, it all felt like I was trapped inside a sealed glass jar. A nurse came in. She saw me sitting there hollow and asked softly, "Where's your wife?" I swallowed hard. She just stepped out for some air. "I'll stay with him," I lied. Maybe because I didn't want anyone to see how my family had just fallen apart. That morning stretched on forever. I sat by the bed, never letting go of his hand, holding it, like if I loosened my grip, everything would disappear. By noon, the anesthesiologist came in, checking on him, handing me papers to sign. "Where's Mom?" "I need both parents' signatures before we move him to intensive care." A simple question, but it cut straight through me. I nodded and signed with a trembling hand. As soon as I left the room, I started calling. 12 calls. No answer. Texts, no reply. I called her parents. Friends? No one knew. No one said a word. After that day, I learned to do everything alone. Daytime was paperwork. Nights by his bed. Every time the monitor beeped differently, I jolted awake. If I had to step out, I'd ask a nurse I trusted to keep an eye on him. No one else came. The room that once held 3 people now had only the 2 of us. The first week, Ethan was so weak he only opened his eyes a few times. And every time he whispered, lips cracked and dry. So faint I had to lean in close to hear. "Where's Mom?" "Dad." I forced my voice to stay steady. "She's tired. Resting at home. Close your eyes, buddy. Get some sleep." I lied. And I knew I would have to lie again. On the fourth night, while I was gently wiping him down, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. My heart dropped. I answered. A man's voice. "Are you Mark? Laura asked me to tell you. She's not coming back." I froze. "Who are you?" I bit out every word. He hesitated, then said flatly, "Don't look for her. Just take care of your son." The call ended. The long beep drilled into my head. I stood there, gripping the phone so tight my fingers turned white. In that moment, rage, hurt, and betrayal twisted together until I could hardly breathe. I turned and looked at my boy, struggling for each breath. And a cold, sharp thought cut through me. Laura didn't just leave. She planned this. And with that letter, I didn't just lose my wife. I lost the last piece of faith that this family ever existed. After that call, I couldn't even cry anymore. It was like everything inside me froze. A sheet of ice wrapped tight around my chest. There was only one thing left to do. Keep my son alive. But life didn't let me breathe. Hospital bills. Medicine. ICU fees. The numbers just kept going up. The money I'd saved for years, most of it set aside for this surgery, was gone with her. And I had to run everywhere to borrow. Every morning when I stepped out of the hospital, the city was already wide awake. I lined up at banks, at credit counters, even knocked on the doors of old friends. Some pulled out their wallets, uncomfortable. Some avoided my eyes and whispered, "I'm sorry. I can't." Every refusal was like a knife, but I had no choice. By evening, I was back at the hospital, sitting by Ethan's bed till late. My whole body smelled of disinfectant, dust, and sweat. One morning at the cashier's desk, the clerk looked up at me. "You're here to pay the rest of the bill. Your wife came yesterday to ask for the balance." I froze. My wife. She nodded. She asked everything in detail, said she'd come back, but she never did. That sentence stabbed right through me. She knew. She had planned everything. And she chose to walk away at the moment when my son and I needed her the most. That night, back in the room, I checked my bank account. Every account in my name had been emptied. The transaction history flashed on the screen like hammer blows. She didn't leave in a panic. She left after making sure. The nights that followed were endless. After Ethan fell asleep, I'd sit by the hospital window, phone in hand, trying to trace any lead I could find. I called her old company, her friends. Someone told me, lately she was always on the phone with some unknown number. I even saw her once at a cafe with a man. They looked close. Hearing that, a terrible question echoed in my head. Has this marriage been falling apart for a long time? And I just refused to see it. On the 10th day after surgery, Ethan was finally more awake. He turned on his side, his big eyes weak but searching around the room. "Dad, did Mom forget about me?" His lips were cracked. His voice so faint I had to lean in to catch it. My chest tightened. I squeezed his hand and whispered, choking, "No, she just went away for a while. When you're better, she'll be back." He looked at me, as if he wanted to believe, then slowly nodded and closed his eyes. That lie hurt worse than any wound I've ever had. One evening, I got a text from an unknown number. "Stop looking. Don't let Ethan watch the two of you fight. Take care of him. This is the last message." I stared at the screen. The phone felt like a cold stone in my hand. No name, no explanation. Just a door slamming shut on whatever hope I had left. I kept digging. In the end, an old friend working in legal services helped me trace the number. Piece by piece, the picture came together. A man's name, an address, and a photo. Laura, walking out of his house, bag on her shoulder, her face tired but certain. I stared at that photo for a long time. The face I knew so well it hurt to look at, standing in a place that had nothing to do with me. That night, when Ethan finally slept, I stood by the hospital window, looking down at the streets below. The city lights were still glowing. Life was still moving. But inside me, everything went dark. I took a deep breath and told myself, she has made her choice. From now on, it's just me and my boy. From that moment on, I forced myself to live for only two things. To save Ethan, and to learn how to live a life without the woman I once loved. From the day I knew for sure Laura wasn't coming back, life for me and Ethan moved into a different time. No hope, only duty, and a heavy, unbroken silence. The first weeks after surgery, Ethan recovered slowly, but at least there were no complications. The doctor said, "These first 3 months are critical. He needs constant follow-ups. Someone has to be with him 247. I nodded, and deep down, I knew. It's just me now. I asked for a long leave from work. They gave me a month, unpaid. When that month was over, I found a part-time job I could do from the hospital, so I could stay by his side day and night. Every morning, instant coffee was my only meal. Every night, I fell asleep to the sound of the heart monitor. My body grew weaker. One day, carrying Ethan down the hallway, my vision went black. I staggered, had to lean against the wall, gasping, and then forced myself to keep walking. Once, at a checkup, the doctor looked at the file and quietly asked, "Are you the only family?" I answered softly, "Yeah, just the two of us." He gave me a look full of pity. I turned away. I couldn't take one more of those looks. Hospital bills became a bottomless pit. I sold everything I could. The old truck, my work tools, even our wedding ring. Each thing that left my hands felt like another piece of my life being scraped away. At night, after Ethan fell asleep, I'd open my laptop and work, the tapping of the keyboard mixing with the steady beep of the monitor. Some nights my hands shook so badly I could barely type. My eyes burned, and by the time I looked up again, it was already morning. One night, Ethan woke and saw me passed out on the desk. He whispered, "Dad, go lie down. You're tired." I walked over and held him. "I'm okay, buddy. I'm right here." In his eyes I saw something that broke me, a sadness, and a kind of tenderness that no 7-year-old should ever have to understand. Even weak, Ethan was unbelievably gentle. He drew, drawing the same picture over and over. Just the two of us, standing in front of a small house. No mom, no red in the sky, just a pale wash of green. I hid those drawings in a drawer. Every time I looked at them, my chest hurt. Then another weight came crashing down. One morning, an email from the company. If I couldn't return after 3 months, they would have to end my contract. I stared at that line, my hands shaking. I needed the job, but if I left Ethan now, I could lose everything. And Ethan's questions got harder. "Dad, if Mom never comes back, will you be sad? Do you hate her? Is it my fault she left?" Each one was a blade twisting in my chest. I hugged him tight. "No, none of this is your fault. Even if Mom isn't here, I will always be with you." I said it, but looking into his eyes, I knew he understood more than I wanted him to. Pressure, exhaustion, money, it all piled up. Some nights, when the hospital was dead silent, I would sink to the floor at the end of a dark hallway, press my forehead to my knees, and bite my hand so hard just to keep from crying out loud. And then, that night, something happened. Just before dawn, a loud noise jolted me awake. I ran in and saw Ethan on the floor, pale as paper. He had tried to climb out of bed, reaching for his sketchbook that had fallen, and collapsed. In that moment, it felt like the whole world came crashing down again. I rushed over and lifted him up. His body was as light as a leaf. Pale face, eyes shut tight. "Doctor, somebody, help." My voice cracked, echoing down the empty hallway. Within seconds, alarms blared. Nurses and doctors ran out. They pulled me back as the emergency room doors closed right in front of me. My palms were soaked in sweat. My shirt clung to my back like I'd been drenched in ice water. I just stood there, my heart pounding. Time slowed to a crawl. Finally, the door opened. The doctor stepped out, his voice serious but calm. He had a sudden drop in blood pressure from standing up too fast. "Luckily, you brought him in right away. From now on, don't let him get out of bed by himself." I nodded, throat dry, clenching my hands just to stop them from shaking. That night, when they finally let me back into the room, I sat beside his bed and held his little hand. Slowly, it grew warm again. His breathing steadied. In the dark, I lowered my head and whispered, "I'm sorry, son. I promise I won't let that happen again." Weeks passed, and Ethan's health finally began to stabilize. The day of discharge came faster than I expected. Holding the release papers in my hand, I felt a wave of relief. But behind it came another weight. From here on out, It was all on me. We went back to our old house. I opened the door, and everything inside was exactly as it had been the day Laura left. Every object familiar, yet it all felt strange. The house was still a house, but without a family in it, it no longer felt like home. I held my son close and took a deep breath. "We're home, Ethan." He nodded softly, his eyes scanning the room, as if looking for a shadow he already knew wouldn't be there. Those first days back were a new kind of challenge. No doctors, no nurses. Everything, meals, laundry, medicine, was on me. In the mornings, I got up early to make breakfast, check his medication, then squeeze in work online. In the afternoon, I'd take on odd jobs. At night, the slightest cough from him would snap me awake. 2 weeks after coming home, I was at my desk typing when I heard a strange wheezing sound. I ran in. Ethan was clutching his chest, face flushed, eyes wet with tears. I scooped him up, ran to the porch, sat on the floor, and grabbed the nebulizer kit the hospital had told me to keep ready. 30 minutes later, his breathing eased. I sat there, drenched in sweat, my heart still racing. The house was silent, but inside me, the storm never stopped. A month later, the scar began to heal. Ethan started walking slowly around the yard, his small hand gripping mine. The sunlight was soft on our shoulders. I listened to his breathing, steady now, but still weak. He looked up at me. "Dad, is it just us now?" I bent down, pressing my forehead to his. "Yeah, just you and me, but that's enough. I'll never leave you." For the first time since we left the hospital, he smiled. A faint smile, but it tightened my throat. Still, no matter how hard I tried, life didn't get any easier. Work and caring for him drained everything I had. Every utility bill, every prescription refill, another weight on my chest. Sometimes my phone buzzed. Messages from that same unknown number. No apology, no explanation. Just a single line. "Take care of your son. Stop looking." Each time, I just stared at the screen. My fingers wanted to type back. But in the end, I let the phone drop. Inside me, a part of something had died with those words. One evening, while sorting his medicine, I realized the special prescription was almost gone, and my account was down to a few dollars. I sank to the floor, back against the wall. Ethan came out of his room, carrying his sketchbook. He sat next to me and quietly placed a new drawing on my lap. In the picture, there were 3 people, me, Ethan, and an empty outline next to us. He whispered, "Dad, can you color this part for me? I don't know what color to use anymore." I gripped the paper. Tears burned my eyes but wouldn't fall. Looking at that empty space, I understood something. Some wounds never heal, but I don't get to fall apart. Not until I can fill that empty space for my son. Life kept spinning. Mornings were a rush, bills piling up, nights spent watching Ethan sleep. I thought I had learned to live with the empty space Laura left behind. But one rainy afternoon, a letter tore through that fragile piece. A plain brown envelope. No sender's name. Shaky handwriting on the front. "Come meet me. I'll tell you everything." Address attached. I held it for a long time, my heart pounding so hard I had to sit down. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. 100 questions hit me all at once. Was it Laura? Was it the man from the photo? Or was this just another wound waiting to be opened? I looked at Ethan. He was at the table, carefully drawing a house with a blue sky. In that moment, I knew I couldn't keep living with questions that never get answered. I asked the neighbor to watch him for the evening, put on a raincoat, and stepped out into the wet night. The address led me to a small cafe on the edge of town. It was dark, rain falling light and steady, streetlights casting broken reflections on the pavement. Inside, I saw him, the man from the photo. He stood up as soon as he saw me. There was no smugness in his face, no challenge, just exhaustion. "Mark, thanks for coming. Sit down," he said, his voice low, his hands clasped tightly on the table, as if holding himself together. I sat, my fingers wrapped around a hot cup of coffee, but my whole body felt cold. He looked at me, then spoke slowly. "Laura didn't leave just because she was tired of you. I met her in a support group for parents of sick kids. Years of caring for Ethan. The financial pressure and silent depression. She was breaking apart. Right before the surgery, she told me she couldn't take it anymore." My ears rang. I had seen Laura tired, but I had never imagined it went this deep. He went on, I told her to step away, to take time to get help. It's not what you think between us. She just wanted to breathe. All this time, she's been in therapy. Only now, feeling strong enough, she asked me to reach out to you. I froze, my whole body pulled tight like a wire. Then why? My voice was hoarse. Why let her son think she's forgotten him? The man lowered his head, sadness in his eyes. She's terrified of hurting him more. She asked me to tell you. When she's strong enough, she will come back and explain everything. Right now, she's not ready. He pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. This is what's left of the money she took. She asked me to tell you. She's sorry. And thank you for never giving up on Ethan. I stared at it. My hand trembled, but I didn't pick it up. Money was never what I wanted. There was only one thing I needed: answers. He added, Laura wants to see you, not to ask for another chance. Just to say everything she couldn't. It's your choice, whether to meet her. I stood up and walked out. The rain stung my face like needles. And in my head, there was only one question left. What hurts more? To see her again, or to live the rest of my life never knowing? The day of the meeting came faster than I expected. I didn't sleep the night before. The house was silent, only the sound of Ethan's steady breathing in the next room. I sat at the table, staring at the paper with the address on it. My heart kept pounding, part of me wanting to run there right now, another part terrified of the answers I was about to hear. I got to the park almost an hour early. The path was empty. Golden leaves covered the ground. With every step, my heartbeat got heavier. And then I saw her. Laura stood under a large tree, thinner than I remembered. Her oversized coat made her shoulders look even smaller. When I walked closer, she turned slightly. The moment our eyes met, my hands clenched so tight they trembled. She hesitated, and in that moment, I realized we were both afraid the other might just turn and walk away. The air was heavy. The only sound was the rustle of leaves around our feet. Mark, her voice was shaking. You've carried too much, and I'm the one who made it this way. I swallowed hard. I had imagined this moment 1,000 times. I thought I would shout, accuse her. But looking at her now, my voice came out as nothing more than a thin, frayed thread. Why? Laura lowered her head. Her fingers knotted together. I tried, but every day, watching him in pain, I felt helpless. It was like falling into a hole with no way out. I was terrified I'd break before I could do anything. Back then, running away was the only thing I could think of. Her voice cracked. Tears slid down her cheeks. But after I left, I realized I had thrown all of it onto you. A weight no one should have to carry alone. I've asked myself 1,000 times how much you must hate me. I'm sorry, Mark. Not because I stopped loving you, but because I was too weak. Hearing that, something in my chest tightened. The anger I had carried for so long started to dissolve, leaving only a cold, hollow space. Ethan, I choked out. He never stops asking about you. He thinks you left because of him. Laura broke down, shoulders shaking. No, it was never his fault. Please, Mark, tell him that for me. Will you? We sat down on a bench. The cold wind swirled dry leaves around our feet. Laura stared off into the distance. I didn't come here to ask for forgiveness, or to ask to come back. I came so you'd know the truth. I love him. But right now, I still can't come home. I need more time to find myself again. I asked quietly, and if one day, you're strong enough. She was silent for a long time, then said, if that day comes, and you and Ethan still want to see me, I'll knock on the door. The sun dipped behind the trees. Before we parted, I said just one thing. I can't promise I'll wait, but I promise. Our son will know the truth. Laura nodded, and I stood there, watching her walk away, her figure slowly fading into the gray of the evening. On the way out of the park, I took the envelope of money from my pocket, the one that man had given me, and placed it back on the bench. Money couldn't fill this gap. Only the truth could. When I got home, Ethan ran out and hugged me. I knelt down, held him tight, and whispered, your mom hasn't forgotten you. She just needs more time. He looked at me with clear eyes. No questions. Then handed me a new drawing. The same little house, the same blue sky, and in the corner, that empty space was now filled with a faint, pale color. In that moment I realized, whether Laura comes back or not, we will learn to fill that space, just by living our life. That afternoon in the park cut like a blade. Painful, but in a strange way, it also set me free. I went home, held Ethan, and for a moment, I felt a little lighter, but nothing else changed. The bills, the medicine, the long nights watching over his sleep, all of it was still there. So I started changing things. I took a night shift job, just to have insurance. Every evening, I asked the neighbor to watch Ethan. In the morning, I'd get him ready for school, then grab a few hours of sleep. My body was exhausted, but my mind felt steadier. For the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't just drifting anymore. I was steering my own life again. One morning, while I was tying my shoes to take him to school, he asked, "Dad, did Mom call?" I froze. Looking into those clear eyes, I said softly, "Not yet, but she misses you. She's trying, so one day she can see you again." Ethan nodded. From that day on, his drawings slowly started to show more color. And then, a call from my old company. "If you want to come back, you can start next week. It's going to be tough, but the pay is better. Think about it." That night, I laid out a sheet of paper. 2 columns. Stay with the night job, close to Ethan, but unstable. Go back, far from him, but a better future. I wrote, I erased. Every choice felt like a knife. I was afraid that if I was gone too much, he would think I'd left him too. The way his mom did. When the sky started to lighten, I walked into his room. He was curled up, holding his worn-out teddy bear, fast asleep. And I realized, if I can't be strong enough to build a future for him, his life will always be unsteady. I decided to quit the night shift and go back. On my first day back, the office hallway sounded just like before. But as soon as I walked in, I felt it. The stares. Some nodded, some looked away. The manager called me into a meeting room. "Mark, I know what you've been through, but from now on, things will be strict. Are you sure you want to start over?" I answered slowly, steady. "I don't have another choice. I'm doing this for my son." He paused, then pushed a thick file across the table. "The toughest project in the department. They don't believe you can make it back. Prove them wrong." The days that followed were relentless. Leaving home while Ethan was still asleep. Coming back late, just in time to share a quick dinner before we both collapsed into bed. One night, while I was reading him a bedtime story, Ethan tugged at my arm. "Dad, do you hate Mom?" I stopped for a moment. "No, I don't hate her. I just feel sad. But sadness doesn't last forever. Like after the rain, the sun comes back out." He gave me a faint smile. "I don't hate Mom either. I just miss her." I pulled him into my arms. That simple, honest answer lifted something from my chest. And at the same time, it cut deep. At work, I sometimes heard whispers behind me. "His wife left. His kid's sick. No way he'll make it here again." I heard all of it. But this time, I didn't say a word. I just stood in front of my screen, hands clenched, and let one thought echo in my head. They can doubt me, but I'll show them. By the way, I stand my ground. The pressure at work kept piling up. I threw myself into the project, partly to get it done, partly to drown out the whispers. Some days, I worked 12, even 14 hours straight. By the time I got home, all I could manage was a few pages of a bedtime story for Ethan, before passing out at the table. One afternoon, right in the middle of a tense meeting, my phone started buzzing, again and again. The screen said hospital. Every drop of blood in me went cold. I shot to my feet. Every eye in the room turned to me, but the sound of the meeting faded into nothing. I answered. A nurse's urgent voice. "Mark, come now. Ethan's having trouble breathing. He's in the ER. This is worse than last time." My chair fell backward. Papers scattered. I didn't even say a word. I just ran. My footsteps hammered against the hallway floor, racing with the pounding in my chest. By the time I got to the hospital, Ethan was already in the emergency room. I stood frozen outside the glass, fingers gripping the edge of a chair until my knuckles went white. Unlike last time, I knew exactly why this had happened. He'd been home too long, without me there. Almost an hour later, the doctor came out. "You got him here in time? He's stable now, but it's serious. You have to rethink how you work. He can't be alone for so many hours." I nodded, but my throat was locked tight. Those words stabbed straight through me. That night, I sat by his bed, holding his small hand. His face was pale, his breathing even, but fragile. In the yellow light, I saw Laura again, standing under that tree, her voice breaking, admitting she couldn't take it anymore. and a question came to me. Am I walking down the same road she did? If I keep running ahead and leave him behind, what's the difference? Right then, I knew I can't trade his childhood for stability bought with my absence. The next morning, I called my manager. I'll finish this project, but after that, I need to cut back. I can't let my son grow up with nothing but rushed phone calls. On the other end, there was a pause. Mark, I understand. Finish this one. After that, I'll find you a position that works. Just don't quit now. For the first time, I said what I needed without feeling ashamed. The weeks that followed, I spent my days in the hospital, my nights on the laptop beside his bed. As Ethan slept, I typed under the yellow glow. Slowly, I noticed the way people looked at me changed. They didn't just see someone trying to come back. They saw someone who refused to fall. When the project was finally done, my manager placed a hand on my shoulder. Good job, Mark. You've earned your second chance. I nodded. But the real reward was waiting in the hallway. Ethan, standing there, pale but smiling. Dad, tonight can we finish that story? That night, in the quiet hospital room, I read him the ending. He leaned against my chest, his eyes closing slowly. When the story was over, I whispered, I promise, no matter what happens, I will never leave you. Outside the window, the night sky was calm, and I realized, from now on, every day I live will be a story I write just for him. Page by page, word by word. With my time, the months that followed, life slowed down for me and Ethan. No more rushing out in the morning while he was still asleep. No more coming home at night with barely a minute to see him before we both passed out. We started to really live together. Mornings, I walked him to school, listening to him talk about his new drawings. Afternoons, I worked more from home. Evenings, we cooked. Sometimes just instant noodles. Sometimes pancakes burnt on both sides. But the kitchen was always full of laughter. I realized these small, ordinary things were exactly what I had been missing for so long. One night, while we were coloring, Ethan looked up and asked, Dad, do you ever make wishes? That simple question made me pause. I smiled and answered softly, I just wish I'll always be strong enough to stay by your side. He handed me a green crayon. Then color this tree, Dad. Trees need green to stand strong. I looked at that little hand beside mine, and in that moment I understood. I used to think a man's worth was in how much he carried, how much he earned. But now I know, sometimes the greatest thing a father can do is simply to be there. I once hated Laura down to the bone, but looking at that calm smile on my son's face, I realized something. If she hadn't left, I might never have learned to stop, to really listen to myself, and to him. Another night, after reading a story, Ethan whispered, Dad, I dreamed Mom came back. She stood outside the door and knocked so quietly. I opened it. She asked if she could hug me. I said yes. Then she left again. I held him close and whispered, if that dream ever comes true, I know you'll hug her as tight as you can. And after that, we'll keep living. Together, life hasn't become easier. The bills, the hospitals, the sleepless nights. But I don't feel alone anymore. I've learned something. Forgiveness isn't a gift for Laura. It's a key for myself. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means the past no longer controls today. One quiet weekend afternoon, I stepped out onto the porch and looked up at the blue sky. The breeze carried the smell of freshly cut grass. For a moment, I remembered the day she left. The closing door, that empty hallway. Then I looked over, the same doorway, but now it's different. There's laughter. There's color. There's presence. Ethan held up his newest drawing. 3 figures, me, him, and an empty outline, softly shaded in. On top, in his careful handwriting, my family. I took the picture, my hand trembling, and in my heart, I whispered, whether you come back or not, this family will keep moving forward, and I'll be the one who keeps the fire burning. Our story doesn't end with a perfect finish. Laura is still out there, fighting her own battles. Ethan and we still have a long road ahead. But starting today, I've made one choice. I will stay, every single day, walking beside my son. And that's enough. Enough for us to keep writing the rest of our life. Page by page, steady, in the light of a new day. Summer evening. The frame widens. Mark and Ethan on the porch, a small house behind them, and a wide open sky. The sound of a child's laughter drifts into the wind, and slowly the screen fades to black, leaving a long, quiet pause in the hearts of those who watch.